Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode, we're doing our first official countdown on 10 random movies that terrified me as a child. To start off the video, I want to talk about a movie called Monster House. This movie was awesome. I love it, even to this day. However, when first watching it as a child, I definitely was quite scared. I was not prepared mentally, and for a kids' film, it definitely shouldn't be a kids' film. It's more of like a horror film for kids, really. But there's multiple scenes in this movie without really going into too much details. It's about a young guy, a young kid, kind of maybe just hitting puberty, and his neighbor is an old man, and something's wrong with the house, and the old dude basically chases kids off his property, steals their toys or whatever lands on his lawn, and yeah, yells at them and then takes their stuff, and yeah, they never see it again. And this movie was just really scary for me as a kid. I remember seeing it when I was 4 or 5, and just from there, I just had to stop watching 5 minutes in, and then coming back briefly when I was maybe 9 or 10, and that's when I would watch it. But even then, it was just like it was just creepy. But nonetheless, I had a really good time. It's one of my favorite movies to this day. But of course, with it being on this list, there are some scenes in the movie that really shook me as a kid. And every time during the start of the film, when Mr. Nevercracker ran out of his house onto the lawn, yelling at a kid, for me, that was always scary. I don't know why, but every time he was yelling, threatening a kid, I found it scary personally because I was a kid, and I just didn't like the whole yelling. But not even that, like the house coming alive and like being like a monster, that was terrifying as well. And, there's a scene when the three kids, the three main kids, are in the basement of the house, and parts of the house are looking for the kids. They can't find it. They can't find the kids, I should say, sorry. And the kids find a cemented corpse, and one of the kids trips over and with his nose breaks the cement, and basically it all cracks open and reveals a huge skeleton under the house, which also was quite creepy to watch, especially as a kid. So there's some scenes in this movie that definitely shook me, but it's one of my favorite films to this day. That's number 10, though. On number 9, we're going to start off with Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
You're a wizard, Harry.
This movie was awesome. Obviously, like, I love all the Harry Potter films. I'm a big fan. I think particularly some of the first few of these films were creepy for kids, just with a select few scenes. I remember in this movie, however, there's a scene when Harry is in a restricted section of a library, and he opens one of the books looking for Nicholas Flamel, and one of the books he opens like yells at him. Again with the yelling, I don't know what it was for me, but that as a child watching that was scary. I might have been 10. I don't want to hear judgment. It is what it is. But I found it to be really scary. I hated it. I just couldn't listen to the yelling or even look at like the book becoming a face. It was just too much. But that movie's got other scenes. There's a scene, obviously, when the kids have to, kids being like Malfoy, Harry, Ron, and Hermione with Hagrid, they have to go into the Dark Forest, and there's that, they find Voldemort basically drinking unicorn blood, and when Voldemort's just slowly walking to Harry, that's also one of those like skin crawling moments. Even as a kid, just watching that was just really, really bad. Watching it nowadays is a breeze, but watching it back when I was a kid wasn't so much fun. And then going to the spoiler alert, when you see Professor Quirrell and you see Voldemort's head on the back of Quirrell's head, that face reveal was terrible. That was the dying demonic evil voice that Voldemort gave. Like, it was just awful. And every time I saw that, I remember just having like just not a good time watching it, and I had nightmares plenty of times as a kid. It was not a good time, but great movie, amazing movie. Just a few scenes that did terrify me, unfortunately. Next movie, number 8, we're gonna go with Coraline.
Hello, Coraline.
Coraline for me was one of those films that I watched once and I just could never stop watching. This was an awesome, awesome film. I loved this. Me and my brother, whenever we watched this the first time, it was at home, and somehow Dad had 3D glasses for us. So we watched it in 3D, and we were just like, we weren't really terrified, but there were some scenes that definitely got to me the most. And I remember that we watched it once, and then we just continued to watch it. Like it was a really fun movie. More of a kids horror kind of movie. But yeah, it was a really fun movie. Anytime one of our friends came over, just any time of the year, we would say, "Have you seen this movie?" And if they hadn't, we made sure that they watched it with us. And everyone that we watched it with loved it. But of course, unfortunately, for little me at the time, there were some scenes that were creepy. AF. One of the scenes when Coraline kind of realizes that something sus is going on in the other world and she no longer wants to be there. And, she can't find the other mother, but she does find the other dad. And he's playing piano. And he's just, I don't know, there's something about him. He's all lethargic. His energy's not the same. He's down. He's mopey. And he ends up putting his fingers in his mouth and, pulls his mouth open, saying that like one of the other characters was like, pulling a long face, and other mother didn't like it. And you know I'll try and find the scene, I'll put it up, but basically watching that as a kid, you just don't expect it, and it's just really, really creepy, but it's done really well. It's one of the scenes I appreciated very quickly, but first watching that was terrifying. Of course, you've got the other mother whenever she, turns into, the kind of spider, the longer version of the other mother as well. That's really creepy. Anytime during the kind of like end of the film when Coraline is trying to escape the other world, and the mum's trying to make sure she doesn't, that was always scary. Even like when the hand manages to get through the little door into the real world and drags Coraline into the well. Well, obviously she doesn't fall in, but tries to at least. There's all these scenes throughout the film that are terrifying. And it's hard to remember that during this film you are watching a kids film. It doesn't feel like it though. So there's plenty of scenes in Coraline. I know a lot of people will relate. If you watched it as a kid and you didn't find it creepy, I'd really want to know, because that is an interesting perspective to have. But even the scene when, Coraline is playing the game into, getting out of the real world and, supposedly getting her real parents back from the other mother, Wybie, one of the characters who's in the other world but is kind of like on Coraline's side, his clothes are like hanging and, kind of like drifting in the wind, and it's just kind of a silhouette of the character, and you can tell that he's obviously kind of like been taken away or killed even. Like it's creepy. There's a lot of scenes that just don't really, you know, give you the whole this is a kids movie kind of vibe. So awesome, awesome film. I wish they did a live adaptation of it, like a real life version. That would have been sick. The animated movie is great. It is, for me, it's a 10 out of 10. It's one of those really creative movies that Focus Features did, and I've loved it no matter how old I am. I think I first watched it maybe when I was 8 or 7, and I'm nearly 25 now. So, great movie, but as a kid, watching that was terrifying. On to the next movie, we've got Jurassic Park at number 7. This movie was a lot of fun. Watching these nowadays, they're great, but unfortunately, watching the first few of these movies really terrified me. And unfortunately, with the first one, when I was watching it, I think I was in grade three, I was like 9 or 8, and I couldn't take away the art form, the entertaining kind of aspect, from the real life kind of people being eaten by dinosaurs. Like seeing that for me felt so realistic, and anytime I saw a tourist get eaten by a dinosaur, I took it literally, and I got really upset, and it scared me, and I felt bad for the person being eaten alive. And I don't know why. It was the same thing with Jaws or anything really where there was some kind of animal, dinosaur, creature, monster that would like kill people, eat people. I just couldn't look at it like it was a movie. I felt like it was real life, and it always made me really sad. And yeah, that for whatever reason scared me. So there's a scene in one of the first Jurassic Park movies, I'm pretty sure it's the first one, where this guy tries to hide from the from the Tyrannosaurus Rex, and unfortunately, the Rexy breaks the hut, and this guy's just sitting on a toilet, and he's eaten by the dinosaur, and it's funny watching it now because it's, he's like sitting on a toilet and then he gets eaten by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Like, you can see the funny side of it now, but like when I was 8, I remember watching that, and, I reacted like, haha, that's kind of funny, but then I was really sad and I thought it was like real life. So I don't know what it is, but that just any kind of dinosaur eating someone really scared me. But I remember watching that particular scene, and then I just couldn't watch, and I had to tell Dad to turn it off. So that was a scene for me when I was 8 or so, and I just did not like it whatsoever. At number 6, though, we've got a movie that I've only seen a few times, always during my childhood, but A Christmas Carol. This is a great movie, and if you like me and you love Jim Carrey, this is just one of those that you have to go to. This movie, however, for a Christmas movie, a children's Christmas movie, an animated children's Christmas movie, it is scary. It's got demons, I guess, ghosts of Christmas, and they are, I don't really remember what like the main goal of, the premise is, but I believe from memory, the ghosts and the whole experience that our main character goes through is to make him a better person and, appreciate Christmas. Because he seems to be someone who's just not a people person, very closed off, very isolated, and, like he hates Christmas. And basically, like, he has to go through this wild adventure on Christmas Eve, and, he ends up seeing all these ghosts, and one of them's like, got like chains and, like ball and chains kind of vibes. Like he's just, I don't know. There's these really creepy ghosts from memory, and it's a cool movie. I remember having a good time, but it was really scary watching this as a kid. And I don't really even remember many scenes, but I remember this being a scary movie that I watched whenever it came out. I watched it at a friend's place, and we were all terrified. So, fun movie, cool looking at it now, but like one of those movies where, again, this is a kids movie, but it does not feel like a kids movie. It should be labeled as a kids horror movie. You know what I mean? But like, still got that happy Disney ending, just really creepy during the first 3 quarters of the film. It's just, I don't know. But again, good film. Just yeah, some of those scenes weren't nice. Film number 5. This is a really ordinary answer, but Beethoven's Fifth. I'd seen a few of these during my childhood. I don't know why I had them on disc, but they were good family movies. But the fifth one, for whatever reason, always gave me the chills as a kid. And that's because it was kind of to do with ghosts. I don't know what it was, but I was afraid of ghosts as a kid. There are many scenes in this movie where the main character, maybe a 12-year-old girl, is in the forest and she's with her uncle and another younger boy, and they're looking for, I guess, money, and with Beethoven, the huge Saint Bernard, and unfortunately, they see ghosts, and the ghosts were these bright kind of, you know, white sheeted, huge glow kind of vibe, kind of look, and I don't know what it was, but the sound, just like the levitating kind of, ghost silhouette was just always really creepy. And every time I saw it in the film that I watched and revisited many times, I just found it really creepy. Um, Not only that, but there were these criminals that they robbed a bank, they stole a lot of money, and it was this like Bonnie and Clyde kind of situation. And for whatever reason, this old story was so relevant in the town during the movie. And the girl goes to sleep, has a dream of these robbers like coming into her room in the middle of the night. And I don't know why, but that scene just always just it was too much. I did not like it. And I watched it every time as a kid, and it made my skin crawl. I hated it. I hope I can find it. Obviously, like talking about it right now, I'm just freestyling this, but if I can find it on YouTube, I definitely will, because I need to try and paint a picture and justify my excuses for why I was terrified. But honestly, it was a good film, definitely a family film, but there were some scenes that scared me as a kid. Next movie, we've got E.T. I don't know why, but E.T. was just one of those movies that seemed to impact me a few times. Not while I was watching it as a kid, but there was a period in my childhood where I was having nightmares, and every time I was having these nightmares, they were of E.T. I don't know why, but my brain kind of created like a violent version of E.T. and every time I went to sleep, I'd have this E.T., horror kind of filled dream, and it made me not want to watch the movies. Sorry, the movie, and I don't know why, because I knew that the movie wasn't scary. But when they first see E.T. in the shed, um, that was enough for me to just turn it off every time. I didn't like it anymore, and I couldn't watch it. Obviously, there was finally a period where I could come back to it. It's obviously a cult classic, like, an absolute treasure nowadays. But during my childhood, watching it, I loved it, and then I had the nightmares, and for whatever reason, they just kept coming back, so I could never revisit the film until I finally kind of hit that preteen time, and I was just like, this is silly. I'm watching this movie. So yeah, I can't really say that maybe this one is one of those films that, watching as a child scared me. It definitely has elements that are creepy. It's obviously an alien, and, the government kind of gets involved, and, there's some pretty sad scenes, and scenes that probably will impact kids watching this. But I remember loving it, and then all of a sudden just not being able to watch it. And I know I loved it because I had a stuffed ET toy that my mum got me as a kid as well. So yeah, it was one of those films that I watched plenty of times, but then all of a sudden I just remember not being able to watch, and in the middle of the night, like running to my parents' room, crying, saying ET was in my bed or something. So yeah, funny story, great film. Unfortunately, at that time, not so much, but nowadays, obviously, terrific film. And just talking about it now, I feel like right after this video, I gotta go watch it. Scooby Doo Spooky Island. This film is a kids' film. Whether or not it has horror aspects, I'm not sure. You could debate that. I reckon it does. Whether or not that's on purpose, again. But this is a really good film. Even nowadays, I love this film. Came out in 2002. Why this is on the list? There's obviously the start with the balloon ghost kind of character that kidnaps Daphne, and then the gang are trying to get her back and unmask the ghost. And I don't know why, but apparently I don't remember this, but during my childhood when I first started watching that movie, that scene when the ghost is like, you know, floating through the air in the toy shop, I think it is. Apparently I did not like that as a kid, and my auntie or my I think it was my mum, but it could have been my auntie, told me that I just could not watch that as a kid, and I would have to cover my eyes. She would cover my eyes every single time, and then I was fine for the rest of the film. But that scene just at the start, where Daphne is like, yeah, taken, and yeah, the ghost is just floating through the air. Like, I don't know why, but apparently that scared me. I can't see it now, but as a kid, apparently I could. There's also other scenes though, like I would say that, you know, when they're on the quad bikes and they're trying to get away from, you know, the people that have been taken by the, I guess, the monster kind of curse thing that's taken their souls or whatever it is. You know, and Shaggy, Scooby, and Mary Jane are on the quad bikes, and then Mary Jane gets hit in the face with like a tree branch or something, and you know, her face gets all a little bit distorted, and she's got green eyes, and like, you know, she pulls her face, and eventually, like, you know, she's all good, and but Scooby sees it, and then he's like all sus about it. I remember that scene. For whatever reason, they thought it was necessary. It was definitely not for me as a kid. It scared me. I did not have a good time with that. And I'm not the only one. I know that that also probably got my brother. And one of my mates that I watched it with as a kid, he didn't like it either. So, one of those weird scenes that I felt like maybe as a kid wasn't necessary. It's fine now, but I did not have a good time watching it at the time. I don't want to hear that you don't agree with me on this one. This is a, I think it goes without saying, there doesn't need to be an excuse here, or, you know, I don't really need to justify my answer for why I put this on the list, but Charlie and the Chocolate Factory at film number two. This film is a great film. It's the original, obviously. This is an awesome film. Not that the, you know, reboot wasn't, but this is a great film. Unfortunately, though, with the tunnel scene, you know, when they're going on the boat, and you know they're all, you know, happy go lucky, and you know the boat gets faster, and you know they see all these different, you know, along the walls of the tunnel, these different like horror fueled kind of um scenes, pictures, whatever they are. There's like bugs, there's like snakes, there's just all these gross things with these like terrible sounds, and you know, Willy Wonka's like getting all like, you know, there's no idea where we are going, where the water is flowing, and like I can't remember exactly how it goes because I haven't seen the film in a long time now, but I probably should revisit it. But it's one of those scenes where you're watching it as a kid and you're just like, why is this necessary? This is a chocolate factory. Like everyone was eating chocolates before. Why are we experiencing this? And as a kid, yeah, I got through it every time, but I just remember there were scenes where I was like truly horrified during that tunnel experience. And I didn't realize, I couldn't like pinpoint why this was in the film. I was like, no, the rest of the film is great. Why do you have to have this part? But now I think it's fine. I think it's cool. But yeah, I feel like any kid, and surely you agree with me if you're watching this, as a kid, please comment to make me feel better. Or actually, I don't know if I need to feel better because I feel like it was justified, but there were, yeah, there were scenes in this movie that were like absolutely fine. Even when the kids, you know, blew up like a blueberry, or you know became pixelated, or you know fell down the bad egg chute, whatever. Like the boat scene when they go through the tunnel was terrible at the time of being a kid. Otherwise, it's fine now. But yeah, just one of those scenes. I'm surely you can agree with me. It was just one of those terrible scenes. Um, but to get to the long-awaited last movie on this list, this is not the worst, but it is the last, and that is number one being Polar Express.
Hey, we all!
There is a scene in this movie, I'm sure you can agree with me, there is a scene in this movie where it was kind of it was kind of like, yeah, again, it was not fair. It was just, you're watching this as a kid. It's a beautiful Christmas movie. And then all of a sudden, you know, the homeless ghost kind of guy on the train is doing like a ventriloquist kind of, you know, performance thingy with this puppet. And you know, the kids are going through this room full of, you know, used broken toys, and the main character gets left in there for whatever reason, and then, you know, the puppet like taps him on the shoulder and yells something like, "You look just like me." And you know, just the yelling just gets louder and louder, and he's like full on like having a go at him, and it's just, it's one of those scenes where it's, I'm glad they put it in there because it puts different layers into the film. It makes it even more interesting, in my opinion. Breaking it down kind of now, I can look at it and go, yeah, I can appreciate that. Like, you know, they've got singing, they've got a little bit of horror, they've got Christmas vibes, they've got, you know, different kind of action-packed vibes with, you know, the skiing on the top of the train, and then there's the, you know, end of the peak, and you know, the train gonna sink on the ice when it's breaking. Like, there's some pretty suspenseful scenes, and just, you know, joyful, and there's such a variety to this movie, and that's what I appreciate about it now. But watching that scene, watching that movie, whenever I did as a kid, it was not fun watching that one scene with the puppet. That was not fair. I'm sure you can relate to me, but that was really scary. Every time I watched it, I did not have a good time. But it's one of those things where, again, I can look at it now and I can go, ah, it's not that bad. I've moved on. I've grown up. So that's it, guys. Those are 10 movies where watching it as a kid, whether I watched the entire film or a scene, or, you know, I just couldn't get through it, or I had to, you know, cover my eyes and, you know, cover my ears. These were 10 different movies that seemed to traumatize me as a kid, and I just didn't like at the time. But let me know your thoughts. If you can relate, I would really appreciate the reassurance, and it would feel good to know that I wasn't in that boat alone. But if you have any other suggestions for, you know, movies that maybe got you a little bit terrified, or, you know, you found scenes to be not really kid appropriate in kid films, let me know, because I'm really curious to know. But nonetheless, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.